One image. No context, no caption, no name. Just an unsettling yellow haze of wallpaper walls and fluorescent lights of implied, endless, empty space. Posted anonymously to 4chan in 2019. And that's all it took. I'm Hal Hefner, your personal professor of nerd horror. This is Nerd Horror University, and we're crawling deep inside the world of internet horror into liminal spaces to explore why they're so creepy, why they get under your skin, and how the internet turned one photo into a mythology. Before the Backrooms, there's a concept that makes everything the Backrooms is about possible. A liminal space. A place between places. A space built for transition. Hallways, stairwells, corridors, airport gates. Airports themselves. Everything is all about transition because it's places where you were never meant to stay, where your mind fills in what you don't see, hear, touch, or smell. And when those spaces lose their purpose, something in your mind shifts. Your brain recognizes the space. It expects noise, movement, and people. But instead, there's nothing. No sign of life, just silence. And that mismatch is extremely important because your brain is built on patterns. And when that pattern breaks, it doesn't relax, it doesn't sit down, it doesn't chill. It searches for answers. It fills in the blanks. It identifies when something's wrong, but sometimes it just can't tell you what that is. Liminal spaces trigger a primal fear of the unknown. It's that feeling of disorientation and those uncanny valley-like effects that follow. That discomfort stems from a lack of people, purpose, or context, evoking these feelings of isolation and impending unseen danger that you can't explain. And that's why these types of images, they stick, because they feel like memory, but you're just remembering it all wrong. And what you're remembering is unsettling. All there is the space and you. May 2019, an anonymous post. If you're not careful, you no clip out of reality. You end up in the back rooms. Endless rooms. Mono yellow walls. A fluorescent hum. That's it. No context, no story, no rules, and no monsters. Nothing. More is less, and less is everything. And that's exactly why this image worked. It spread because it was incomplete, but it had just enough detail to trigger your imagination, and nothing to contain it. And then something happened, and the internet did what it always does. It took the baton and sprinted off into the race. People started building new rooms, new levels, new interpretations, new discussions, new controversies, new disagreements, and new visions. The pool rooms, the mall, the hotel. Now, it was no longer one post, one image, or one story. It was thousands. This is open source horror. No single creator or fixed canon at all. It's just a system of interpretation that keeps growing. Then Kane Pixels changed everything. 19 at the time, this teenager rebuilt the Backrooms in Blender and walked through it with a camera. But he instinctively continued the same magnetic allure of mysterious energy that made the original image so evocative. He kept the consistency of no exposition and no explanation, but added existential dread through just movement and space. The video hit tens of millions of views, and not because it showed you something complete and buttoned up narratively, but because it made you feel like you were already there in a nightmare or a past life that was familiar yet different in an unsettling way. And then Hollywood took notice, and now Kane Pixels is developing the Backrooms with A24, and it is expected to release this year in 2026. And most horror films show you everything, whether it's the monster itself or the origin of the horror. Often to kill it is to know it. And that's especially true when it comes to nerd horror. But the Backrooms, that doesn't. There are entities in the lore, but that's not the point. The fear is the space. The literal space you're looking at. And the figurative space, which is occupied in your mind by the incomprehensible. The endless repetition, the lack of landmarks, your brain has no relief, and your body has no exit. Your mind can't resolve it, so it doesn't stop trying. And that creates something worse than fear, dread. But it's a kind of existential dread that's sustained, quiet, and constant. And the early 2000s and 2010s were dominated by jump scares on the internet and in movies. But the Backrooms, it's not here to jump scare you. It doesn't need to, because it removes the edges of relatable reality, and then it waits.
People like the Backrooms because it's a kind of like an intriguing space, like walking around in a dream. Yeah, I always try to take a less is more approach with that. Like, always feel like there's a lot there, but we're only getting to see a small part of it. I don't know, it connects with people in a vague way, and that's what I like about the concept, and that's kind of what I like to seek out with other projects, things that are on your periphery, that you're vaguely aware of, but have maybe never talked to people about or really thought about too critically. But it's always there, so when someone does sort of materialize it into something, you have a pre-built connection with it.
So the Backrooms took over the internet, and liminal spaces really took off. But then there was something else, and that was called Skinamarink. And Skinamarink was a movie that took over your nightmares, especially because it had to do with two children. Two kids wake up at night. Their father is gone, then the doors, and then the windows. And the house stops behaving like a house. The rules are gone as reality is eaten away, and thus allows sanity to collapse into your mind. There's no clear monster in Skinamarink, just a presence. Something that speaks, something that knows them, something that hunts them, watches them. And they can feel it, but they can't understand it. And visually, they take this liminal space and they use low camera angles at child's height. You never see clearly, you have to piece things together. Again, your brain fills in the gaps, and that's the trick. That's how liminal spaces and liminal horror messes with your mind. Skinamarink doesn't show you the horror. It builds a space and lets your mind do the rest. And granted, Some may say it waits just a little too long in some scenes to build that space, which I tend to agree with. As a filmmaker, I may have made a few different choices to not drag things out as much, which is one of the validated criticisms of the film Skinamarink. And when I first started to watch liminal space horror, one of the things that I felt was impatience. And I realized that my impatience was actually a part of the process. And once I realized that, I actually enjoyed Skinamarink a lot more. And if we compare the Backrooms with Skinamarink, it's a different format, but the same mechanism. The familiar made wrong with a different approach, different timing, and different dread. But what's most exciting is that the Backrooms and Skinamarink have started to open up a new portal of liminal horror. A new film just released called The House Was Not Hungry Then. Now, liminal spaces can take many shapes, forms, and aesthetics. And The House Was Not Hungry Then is another creative use of liminal space in a modern way. It's a well-planned, well-shot, artistically crafted, high-quality film with exquisite sound design and also delicious dread. And in this film, we can now see that the house is alive trope is starting to break down the door to a place built for safety and turns it into a place that feeds. And it does it in a way that can't be comprehended. A woman enters looking for her father. People enter and they don't come back. There's a man inside the house. Is he a caretaker? Is he a real estate agent? We don't know. He looks normal. He acts normal. But that's the problem. The space performs safety. But it isn't safe, and neither is he. This is where liminal horror is going. It's not just empty spaces anymore. Spaces that pretend to be something they're not. More questions than answers often leaves what I like to call scar tissue trauma. This is what happens when you see a good horror movie that has a scene so off-putting, so shocking, so wrong, or impactful that you're still thinking about it 3 days later, 3 weeks later, and 3 years later. And The House Was Not Hungry Then is one of those, because it carries a shocking little twist that is just enough of a mindfuck to make you want more, but you're never gonna get it. So why liminal spaces, and why now? Why are they exploding all over it, and why are they captivating us? The answer's simple, because the world changed. And it all started in 2019 during the pandemic, when people were forced to sit in spaces they used to move through. Hallways, homes, stores, streets. Something just felt off. The familiar, without movement, without noise, without any emotional connection. Nobody ever talks about the anxiety of bumping into a stranger in a mask in a grocery store aisle during COVID. A person that you would have smiled at a month ago is now covered up, and so are you. Without being able to read a face, without being able to see a smile, to see some teeth, to see a mouth. You couldn't read an emotion or see a person's reaction. This created a sense of isolation, tension, and dread, both ways between you and the person. We had become just mouthless entities in a cloud of viral fear, once familiar, now separated. It robbed us of connection, and we lived without life. Liminal spaces didn't just disappear, we just started noticing them and creating them. And that's when the horror moved in, and it sure doesn't look like it's leaving. We live in a world today where everything is available at the touch of the little pocket computer we still pretend is a phone. But it's not. Because you have access to everything, and there's no secret to anything anymore. Humans pretty much have the answer to everything. We walk around all day long with AI and our phones, solving everything for us. And that's why, in today's world, the best horror doesn't show you the monster. And actually never did. It puts you in a space and removes the context and lets your mind do the rest. Because whether you recognize it or not, we are the ones that built the back rooms. Hallway by hallway, screen by screen. And every time we choose a device over a doorstep, a text over a conversation, a doom scroll over a moment of clarity and calmness, we pour another mile of fluorescent carpet between us and the world. But you want to know the scariest part? You're in one right now. You just haven't realized it yet.
Horror.
Please like and subscribe for more nerd horror. And we also have another channel called Nerd Horror Stories, a twice-weekly anthology horror series that tells tales of the supernatural, psychological, and unexplainable. So please check out Nerd Horror Stories.